Hi, it's Christie and today I'm going to share with you some tips on how to sit on the floor comfortably. In a lot of my yoga classes, I see and have had conversations with people about sitting on the floor and alleviating their discomfort when they sit on the floor. I have a video that I did a while back on sitting properly in a chair, and I invite you to take a look at that video because it'll give you some additional information that'll be complementary to what I'm sharing with you today. So when we sit in a chair for an extended period of time, oftentimes we lean back in the backrest. And when we do that, we shift our pelvis out of alignment by going into a posterior pelvic tilt, which means that we're sitting on the tailbone. And when we do that for an extended period of time, that translates onto the floor. And so when people come onto the floor, they tend to be sitting on the tailbone, legs crossed at the ankles, and the knees up, and then trying to pull themselves up to a straight position. That requires a lot of effort, and it's actually really uncomfortable because you are not sitting on the proper part of your body. We want to be sitting on the ischial tuberosities. The ischial tuberosities are the sitting bones. It's the backside, it's the lowest part of the backside of the pelvis, and that's where we're supposed to sit. And when we sit on our ischial tuberosities, we bring our pelvis into a neutral position, which allows our spine to be supported and allows our torso to be supported, which helps with breathing. It helps with so many things. Digestion, everything is supported when we are sitting properly. So what I want to share with you today is to invite you to explore lifting your pelvis up to find your ischial tuberosities. When we sit flat on the floor, we tend to be in that posterior pelvic tilt. When we can raise the pelvis, and what height, that's where you have to explore. When you raise your pelvis off the floor, it will help alleviate some of the tension in your hip joints, your pelvis, your back, even your legs. And that's when you can readdress the posture. So I'm going to sit just to show you. There's different props that you can use, bolsters, cushions. This is a bit of a thinner cushion than this one. You can sit on a folded up blanket, and there's different sizes of blocks as well. So there's no shortage of props. It just requires some experimenting and exploring of your body. So I'm going to use this cushion to demonstrate. When somebody comes sitting from the chair, like I said, oftentimes they'll be sitting on the coccyx bone, the tailbone. And if you're lifting the pelvis and sitting on the edge of the cushion, the front edge of the cushion, so you don't want to be sitting all the way back. I've got space here behind me. So I'm sitting on the front edge of the cushion and then using the blocks to support my legs. That automatically brings the pelvis into a neutral position. So what height you need is really dependent on you and your body, and that again is where you need to explore. If you're like me and you are a little bit more open, a little bit more flexible in the hip joints, this cushion would actually be too high for me, because when I let myself go into my seated position, I actually shift my pelvis into an anterior pelvic tilt, which means I'm dropping the front part of my pelvis down, and the top part of the back part of my pelvis is actually lifting, which is accentuating that lumbar curve. which means I'm overextending my spine. So sitting like this, for me, is actually very, very uncomfortable because the cushion is too high for my pelvis and for my hip joints. So I'm going to use a cushion that is a little thinner. And again, I'm sitting on the front edge of the cushion. I actually have space here. I can put my hand on the cushion. And my legs are down. So here in this position, my spine is in a neutral position. My pelvis is neutral. We have curves in our spine for a reason. We want those curves. We just don't want to accentuate them. And I don't need any support for my hips, but maybe you do, right? So you can use blocks to support. When you put blocks under your legs, under your thighs, what that does is it alleviates any excess tension from your hip joints. Another thing to think about when you're sitting up on something to access your sitting bones, you may need, when you extend your legs, you will want to make sure that your thighs are supported so that you don't hyperextend the knees, meaning pushing the back part of the knees into the floor. And sometimes finding your sitting bones is as simple as changing your seated position altogether. So I invite you to explore your body. Explore how you feel when you're sitting, to raise your pelvis off the floor and support your thighs. Play around with that. Play around with the heights. Play around with how much support. What kind of support? Do you need something a little bit more sturdy, like a block? Or do you need something a little bit more cushiony, like a blanket or a cushion? When you do that, you'll notice that sitting on the floor will actually be more comfortable because you're supporting your body. And when you're supporting your body and you're more comfortable, you can actually let go of that excess tension that you're not even aware of that you're holding on to. So until next time, namaste.